You've got to tune to 90.3 FM, KEXP, Seattle, worldwide at kexp.org. I'm Kevin Cole. It's the afternoon show, and joining me right now, Radiohead guitarist Ed O'Brien. Welcome to KEXP.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Pleasure to be here.
It is great having you here, and congrats on the solo album.
Thank you.
It's beautiful. I absolutely love it. This is your first solo album, so I'm curious to know more about how this project came about. In the past, you've been reluctant to record a solo album or have other projects, as you've been vocal about your work with Radiohead and how fulfilling that's been.
Yeah.
And how it wouldn't feel right to do other projects. So what made now feel like the right time?
Well, it wasn't, I mean, not to correct you, but it wasn't that I didn't feel right about doing other projects, because the others have been doing them. It was more a case of I was very creatively satisfied with what I was doing in Radiohead, and massively I had a young family.
Yeah.
And I was, once the kids were born, because I come from a split family, one of the things, and I've always said, like, I want to be there for my family, for my kids. So when the kids were born, it was suddenly, I mean, I even at one stage thought I might leave Radiohead, because I thought, I don't know how to balance this. I have to be there. I want to be there for my kids. But obviously I didn't. In fact, it was Neil Finn who turned round and said, Ed, I was talking to him about it, said, Ed, your kids are not going to thank you for leaving Radiohead when they're teenagers. So it was just a case of, I wanted to be with my young family. And we had a lot of time with Radiohead, and when I was on downtime, I wanted to be there for my kids. And then something happened, and I'm not sure it's a bit like that pool of music when something happens and it's not even, there's no kind of logic to it. Suddenly it was like, I was writing, we'd got some downtime, and this music just started to come out. I mean, literally, I found a way of writing. I'd always struggled with how to write, and I found a method, and it was almost like letting go. The moment I was like, I'm not writing a song, stuff started to happen.
Yeah. What was it? Was it just simply letting go?
Yeah, there were lots of things. I was inspired. So what happened at the end of 2012, me and my young family we went to live in Brazil, and we went to live in the Brazilian countryside, really rural, halfway between Rio and Sao Paulo, on this farm. And I suddenly had time, and I sort of would go off and write in this little hut up by this lake. It was completely idyllic. And I started off trying to write something electronic, and I just kept on coming back. Well, I had a eureka moment with Primal Scream's Screamadelica. Every day I'd have tea, 11 o'clock, stop for tea, have a tea break, and I'd play music. And it's so interesting, I find, that whole process of playing music in a different location. So listening to music in London is very different from listening to music in, say, the southwest of this country, even the west coast, and particularly rural Brazil. So a lot of stuff that I was kind of interested in, a lot of the electronic stuff, didn't resonate with me anymore.
How did Primal Scream sound in rural Brazil?
It sounded amazing. You know, Moving On Up came on, and that album, I hadn't really heard it in 20-odd years. Yeah. And it was like, a light went off. It's like, this is the music I want to make. It kind of imbued me with this kind of coming out of the darkness, this kind of, this elevation that you got in this music, the joy, the love, the warmth. Almost like gospel. I guess Moving On Up's like gospel.
That's right? What I was going to say. There's just such a uplifting quality to it, and the vocals. Yeah. The chorus or the choir.
Yeah, totally. And I'm getting a goosebump as you're saying that, because I'm remembering it. And I was just like, and I go, this is what I want to do. And then we went to Carnival in Rio, and experiencing what was going on in the Sambadrome, that same feeling of joy, warmth, love, light, expression, the beauty of the planet, the beauty of humanity, all these things, and those were suddenly, they were like the triggers. And also, I have to say, reading Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass, that was a massive moment. Yeah, you know, that in that kind, and that's what I found was like, oh, once I'm inspired, the music will kind of come out.
Yeah, it sounds like you had a certain discipline
Yeah, definitely.
So you would do whatever creative projects, have a tea break,
Yeah,
and listen to music.
yeah.
Did you structure reading time in there as well?
No, what happened was, so I kind of had a. We then went back to to Britain, and then I started going out to Wales. I felt like, having been in nature, like this is where the countryside, this is where the music was. Because I'm a country boy. I grew up in Oxfordshire, and so that's where I realized I'd been living in London for 20 years, and I realized being back in nature, that's where I was happiest.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, okay, so in order to write, in order to be inspired, I need to be in nature. That's what I need to do. And that's, I sort of discovered that. So I'd go out and I'd have bursts of, so I rent this little cottage in mid Wales, which is a very, very beautiful, isolated, wild part of the UK. It's in fact very close to where Robert Plant and Jimmy Page wrote a lot of Led Zeppelin 3 and 4. Wow. You hear like the Battle of Evermore in that land. It's very, very fertile. It's an amazing place. So being back there, and there is a discipline. So there's a discipline. You get up in the morning, and I'd walk up to the top of the mountain, then I'd go down to the river, you know, the river in the valley, and then I'd read some Walt Whitman. And by 9:30 in the morning, I was back up and I was inspired, and the music sort of flowed out from that. It was an amazing. It's because it didn't feel like I was forcing it. It felt like it was just happening. I felt in touch with people like William Blake and that spirit that Whitman. That's and you know, that for me was, it was like there was a. I would do that when I go walking in the mountains. I'd feel inspired. I feel, this planet is so beautiful. There's so much potential. And then in kind of the city, it sort of got drained out of me. Yeah. But then being back there and reading these words and reading Walt Whitman aloud, when you read those words aloud, there's such power and beauty. And it completely sort of knocked me out. And so by the time I picked up a guitar and stuff started just coming out.
That sounds like an amazing experience. Or experiences, first of all. And what you're describing is how the record sounds. There's just a natural flow to it, a beauty to it, an optimistic, joyful quality to it. Songs like Shangri-La, which maybe describes that epiphany moment.
Yeah.
Or songs like Deep Days that build and build, but with the vocal refrain, there's really a sense of support or hope.
Yeah, that was really important. I mean, I think it's important. You know, obviously, we're living in very challenging times, and I wanted to make a record that, you know, acknowledged the darkness, but also I wanted to make a record that was hopeful. And I feel really important. I feel that's important. I think we need new stories at the moment, because a lot of the time in the media, obviously, we're bombarded with how crap we are to one another, how human beings, and you know, there are times, but also what's not reported are all the great things that we do. And I really feel like I wanted to sort of acknowledge the darkness, but also focus on the shards of light that are coming through. And I think they're amazing. You know, for all the challenging moments we're going through, there is equally some extraordinary things that are happening. The Me Too campaign, the climate emergency, what's going on in Britain and around the world, and people are actually coming out. So I feel we're in this big moment of change, aren't we? It's huge. And yeah. What I was trying to do also was trying to see the bigger picture. There was this, the working title of the record was Pale Blue Dot, which was references the Carl Sagan book and the photo that Voyager 2 took of the planet. You know, yeah. And those words that accompanied that image of the Earth from 2 million miles away was so inspiring. Again, that's about the bigger picture. This is us. This is our home. This on this tiny mote of dust. Every dictator that's every war that's been fought, every lover that's loved, all on this tiny speck on this photo. And I felt, again, you don't know why these things resonate, like a lot of these things, but it resonated. And so I found things like that, the bigger picture, again, inspiring. So that informed the music. So this idea of perhaps music, how does music sound in space? So Mass was a reference to that. And my friend, the astronaut Michael Massimino, who helped fix the Space Hubble telescope on the space shuttle's last voyage, and all these things. And what I was trying to do is get out my head and into my heart.
Yeah.
And you just intuitively feel way through it. I've coming from Oxford. It's a very sort of academic, cerebral place, and that's great. But the problem with that as well is you can stop. You can slightly close your heart, and for me, it was just like I wanted, like literally, that was a bit of a mantra: out of my head and into my heart. Just feel your way through it. Your head has to come in. Sometimes you have to edit stuff, etc., etc. But I really want to, and that's my thing now musically. I'm completely guided by my intuition. I'm not forcing things. If there's a spark, if there's and it's great because it means you're present. It means you're like, oh, hang on a sec, that's good. And why am I responding to that? I don't know. I'm not questioning, but that's what makes me happy. That's what makes me resonate. Feel good.
Did the move to Brazil in 2012 was that part of kind of warming up and opening to the heart? Yeah,
totally. My wife and I have been going to Brazil for a long time, and for me, when OK Computer came out, it was a really interesting period because obviously this is a great period of success in the band, if you like. But I was really, really unhappy at the time, and I sort of hid that. I was depressed, and the music that I latched onto was Brazilian music. And so from there, this love, my wife and I been back to Brazil, and one of the things I loved about Brazil was that it kind of helped me throw off the shackles of British Reserve and all those things that the British are cliched for, right? And particularly if you've grown up somewhere like middle class Oxford and it's very academic, I needed to throw off that armor, and that Brazil was again. It's a very heartfelt place. The Brazilians are, extraordinary people, so warm, so loving, and so joyful, and many of them live, extraordinarily hard lives.
You're guest DJing on the show this afternoon. We're going to hear a couple influences from some of the artists from Brazil.
Yeah.
But you have a song on the new record called Brazil.
Yeah.
Can we hear that now?
Yeah, please.
You've got to tune to KEXP. It's the afternoon show. That song is Brazil. It is from the solo debut from Radiohead guitarist Ed O'Brien, and the album is called Earth. Ed joining me this afternoon. Tell me a bit about that song, because it's almost like two songs.
Yeah, it very much and deliberately. I wanted it to. It has different sort of levels on it. It's about endings and beginnings. And the first part is really about, I guess it's the darkness, it's the melancholy.
Yeah, it's beautiful, almost acoustic.
Yeah,
song.
Exactly, acoustic. And that's the Welsh part.
There's a lot of acoustic guitar in this record.
Yeah, well, I was playing acoustic guitar, and then and the Welsh thing, and being in Wales, like I said, it's this mid Wales play. Acoustic guitar, it's you can hear it in, again, Led Zeppelin 3 and 4. It's that place, it's in the earth, it's there, it's really, it's like, it's to reduce it to something people might know, it's kind of Game of Thrones country.
Yeah.
But it's very Celtic, it's very old, so things like acoustics really, I was listening to folk music a bit more as well, and hearing Celtic folk music. But I think the thing is, that song, and I didn't want to leave it like that. I wanted it to blossom into this moment of light and love and magic and carnival, which is Brazil. And essentially, it's also about death and the afterlife. It's that thing, what happens. I was reading a lot about near-death experiences and what happens when people talk about going to the light. That when people have drowned and come back to life, they leave their body, but it's not the fear and terror. It's almost like this warmth and this love, and it sort of corresponds with a lot of my, the things that resonate with me, like reincarnation and a kind of a Buddhist philosophy. I'm not a Buddhist, but a lot of the philosophy makes a lot of sense to me, or I resonate with it for whatever reason again. So it was about somewhere that I felt like it's somewhere that's a sort of a desperation that flowers into somewhere that's really beautiful, and it's kind of like it's going to be okay. Yeah. You know, you're in this moment and it's hard and it's challenging, but you know what? It's going to be okay. And I felt again, that was, endings and beginnings. That's a kind of a theme. I feel like that's what's going on in the bigger picture. It's kind of the end of the system, that this is what's happening, the bigger picture. And I may be completely wrong, but the way the world is will probably be very different when the time my children are fully grown adults.
Yeah, I feel that too. I hope that's the case.
I hope that's the case.
It feels like one of those transition periods where we're letting go of the old, and all these positive things that are there, that are maybe oppressed a bit, but are emerging, will come through once we get through this transition.
Totally, exactly.
The song is great. Like, again, it starts out acoustic, and I was just surprised when I listened to it because I was so in that zone, and then the kick drum comes in, and it just turns into this, it just changes. But it still feels like the same song, you know?
Yeah.
There's still a bit of melancholy, but definitely a hope in the lyrics, and how you layer all the voices in there.
Yeah.
Just really fantastic.
Thank you. I'm a big fan of, so you've got I love folk, but I'm also, a big part of my musical love is, when the acid house thing hit Britain in 88, 89, I'm 20, 21 years old. I'm at university in Manchester. I'm right in an epicenter of that, Hacienda and all that stuff. So dance music has played a really, really big part. And so rave, that's been a really important part of the music that I love. So I wanted to get elements of that in a kind of, I guess, in a way, a more, for want of a better word, organic way.
Yeah.
So it's less drum machines, but it's more, it's more shakers and tambourines and kick drums, and using kick drums, using drum machines for kick drums, but kind of that blend. Kind of, I wanted this record to have a bit of hair on it.
Yeah.
I wanted to have some sweat in the record, and colourful, and
You can hear that in the songs like Shangri-La, Brazil, that we just heard, Banksters, Olympic.
Yeah.
Again, for lack of a better word, the drums do sound very organic.
Yeah.
Let's hear some music from Brazil.
Great.
So pick out a couple things that you really dig, or that you felt like maybe had some kind of influence on the record.
So again, it was really interesting. So at night, there was there's no Wi-Fi, there's no phone signal. At night, the kids would go to bed, and the night's lit up, and these little insects, glowing insects, I think they're called Magalut or something, I can't remember what they were, but suddenly there's an electricity at night that's magic. And my wife and I used to sit out there and outside and listen to music. And I remember we were going through some Chica Buarque, who's obviously a big Brazilian artist, and he made this album with Ennio Morricone. And there's this track called Sonha de Carnaval. And I heard that, and again, why does it resonate? I don't know. I just think it's just a stunning piece of music. And again, it's in two parts. It's got the first part, and then it goes into Carnival at the end. So that was obviously an influence. In fact, if I'd had the budget, I'd have gone down to Rio and or Sao Paulo and get a samba troupe and bring it in. But we didn't do that. And the joys of multi-tracking and bluffing it, you can sort of you can get away with something that feels like that.
Well, it's a brilliant song. Let's hear it now. All right, it's the afternoon show. KEXP, Kevin Cole here with you, along with Radiohead guitarist Ed O'Brien. He's got a solo debut out called Earth, and we're hearing some of the influences, or some of the sounds that Ed's really liked, that maybe has seeped its way into the record in a little way. What did we just hear?
We just heard Chica Buarque and Ennio Morricone's Sonha de Carnaval, Song of Carnival, I guess. And then we heard Take It Easy, My Brother Charlie by Jorge Ben, who is He is. If I could be, if I could be one artist, it'd be Georgie Ben. He was an extraordinary sort of. He was the guy that wrote Mas Que Nada, very famous. Started in like 63, 64.
Part of that Tropicalia movement.
Yeah, and then Blossom, and then he made some. You know, he made this amazing album called Africa Brazil in mid-70s. He just absorbed all this stuff and just his grooves and his melodies, and on that song, the horns and just the rhythms of samba. And I you know, again, I'm trying not to dissect it too much, but that music just, every time I hear it, it doesn't fail. It moves me so profoundly because I guess it's got a groove and it's got a lightness, but it's also got I don't know, it's that thing in Brazilian music. I guess it's the saudade, which is a sadness, which sort of underpins it, but it's balanced by this joyful, the joy.
Percussion,
yeah,
the drive,
yeah, and I love that. And that for me is, I guess, that for me is when I discovered Brazilian music around the time of OK Computer. That's just like, okay, this is it. I found my thing. You can dance to it, but it moves, touches your heart. Yeah. It's so emotive as well. So
I can hear that in your record Earth. You know, there's a warmth. The acoustic guitar playing is just a great counterpoint to the textures that come in at various times in some of the songs, like Mass.
Yeah.
You know, just a beautiful acoustic track, but then there's that dark, ominous textures working its way throughout the song. Tell me about being a frontman now and singing. Like, does that make you nervous? Were you nervous about that?
Yeah, totally.
Because your voice sounds great.
Oh, thank you.
And beautiful on these songs, and such a warmth to it.
I'm still nervous about it, to be honest, because, you know, I guess the brilliant, my good fortune is that, you know, I do a record and at least there'll be a couple of people who are interested because of Radiohead. So that's brilliant. But unlike, I guess, I mean, not that it's a downside, but the other thing is that I need to have my together vocally. You know, I didn't want to. So my thing is what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to be easy on myself, and hopefully other people will be easy. That this is a journey. You know, I remember what Tom's voice was like in the beginning days. It's very different from what you hear now. So partly getting out there gigging, which is what I really want to do, connecting with an audience, being out there, taking out a band. I'm really excited about it. I'm trying not to be too hard on myself because I want to enjoy the moment. And sure, it's flawed. I'm flawed, you know, but I think it's like a muscle. My experience of like a band or anything, it's like a muscle. The more you do it, the better you get at it, the more familiar. So it was totally new. And when I was very, very lucky because I haven't mentioned the producer on this record, who's Flood. And I was in extraordinarily good hands. I mean, the breadth of people and bands that he's worked with from, you know, he was an engineer at Trident Studios in the 80s before he went on to work with U2 and Depeche and everything.
Had you worked with him before?
No, but he was a friend.
Yeah.
And he this was a lovely thing about our journey, if you like, because we're both dads with kids at the same school, and his son was in the same class as my daughter. And when the Foals album Holy Fire came out in 2012 that he produced with Alan Moulder,
great sounding record.
I love that record. And I said to him as we kind of dropping off our kids, I was just like, I didn't know him. I said, great record, man. I said I gotta tell you, I'm a huge fan. And he said, wow, it's just pop music, isn't it? And we'd have these great conversations about pop music and how much we loved it. And our wives became friends. We ended up holidaying on together. And yeah, he'd never worked with, it was interesting for him. He said he's never worked with somebody before who's been a friend. So it was new for him. So it was just a really great process. I completely trusted him. He's such a kind and nurturing man. He's also so honest, which is so important, but not that word brutally honest. It's a kind honesty. And with kindness, you can be so much more honest. And so he didn't let me get away with stuff. Not that he was also supremely confident. He was always like, we'll get it. I've got no doubt. I played him the demos when they're demo form, just to play them to a mate, just say, you know, and within 3 songs he turned around and he said, do you want me to work with you on this? Because he heard the potential, and he heard the same thing that I did, which a lot of people don't hear. You know, they hear a demo and they go like, oh yeah, well, you know, it's okay. But I was excited about the demos. I felt there was something here. I was really excited, and he picked up on that. And that was, that's why he's one of the reasons why he's such a brilliant engineer and producer.
Yeah, nothing feels forced about the record. Since you mentioned pop music, one of the tracks that you picked out as being underrated is from Christine and the Queens.
Yeah.
Tell me about that, and let's hear it then.
It was interesting because being in America, she hasn't got quite the sort of in the UK, she's sort of, she headlines the other stage at Glastonbury, which is a big deal. And I think she's a really wonderful artist. She's you know, she does something really interesting, but the music is so poppy. And when I heard what's the track I picked? Girlfriend. I was just like, man, this is just like the pop music that I love. And I love what she's doing, but I love the pop element. And it reminded me of just great pop records growing up.
Yeah, I was fortunate to have her on my show a couple months ago. And she talked all about that, how she was embracing pop and her sexuality on this record and just being more open-hearted about it. And also was so inspired by kind of 80s, you know, Prince and Michael Jackson drum sounds.
Yeah.
And you can really hear it in the record.
And you can hear it, but she does it in a way that's not retro. You're not going like you've heard it. There is joy. And I love the way that her sexual ambiguity. She's a really important artist, and you know, Tilted was an amazing song on the previous album. So she's got this ability to drop these just pop bangers.
Yeah, let's hear it. This is Christine and the Queens, the song Girlfriend. Kevin Cole with you here on KEXP, independent, listener-powered, non-commercial radio here in Seattle at 90.3 FM and worldwide streaming at KEXP.org or via your mobile device. If you don't have our app, you can pick it up wherever you get your apps. If you have any questions or comments, reach out. DJ at KEXP.org. Or via text 206-903-5397. And happy birthday to Radiohead guitarist Ed O'Brien. His solo album Earth comes out on Friday, and you're listening to an interview and guest DJ set I recorded with Ed in October. Ed, earlier we were talking about some of the Celtic music and folk music, and you've picked out an artist that I hadn't heard before that blew my mind. Can you tell me a bit about her and the song and what attracted you to it?
I really don't know much about her. I mean, she's a well-known folk artist. She's from Scotland. She's called Corrine Polwart. And I heard this track. It's called The Wife of Usher's Well. And it was midwinter. So again, it's hearing this. Again, it's the season.
Were you in Wales? This time? Yeah.
And you know, you've been outside and it's pretty wild out there. You know, it's the midwinter. There's no snow, but it's, you know, the wind is blowing, and you come back in for a fire, you know, open fire and sit by there. And I heard this track, The Wife of Usher's Well, and I was blown away by it. I was just like, oh my God, this is. And again, she seems to do this thing that transcends ages and time. It feels like she's tapping into something that's old, that's also very current, that's future, but the sort of the tragic story of a mother who loses her 4 sons. And I felt like that fed into that whole thing of the harshness of life, and maybe you get that in Walt Whitman, and as well, but also that these things happen, and I don't know, I don't know quite how to explain it in a way. I need to get my head together about this. But why did it resonate? I felt like, I think being in certain parts on this planet, particularly in nature, again, you feel like you can hear the echoes of the past. The track that you go down, people have been going down that track for thousands of years. And you feel it in the land, you feel it. And her music, you feel rooted to the past. You feel there's this thread that runs through it. And I think that's also one of the things about Robert Plant and his lyrics with, you know, Led Zeppelin or the folkier stuff, that you definitely feel like when you're in this place and you're in that, you understand that he's picking up on that thread as well. And I think that's what a lot of Celtic music is. It's music for the soul. It's usually quite hard circumstances, but again, telling the story of it.
Do you feel as an artist sometimes if you're just open, you might not know what's kind of being channeled through you?
Yeah, totally. I mean, for me, it's like, you know, you read it, you hear it so many times. When you know, Aretha says, when she said it, well, I'm just channeling God, it's just coming through me. That for me was the moment. If you ask me how I wrote the songs, I can't tell you. I feel like I didn't write the songs. I feel like I've been sort of reluctant to say, well, I started writing these songs. It's like, my thing is like, these songs started to come out. I really do believe, and you know, of course, that's what a lot of people say. That's what a lot of the writers say. They don't, you know, it's not about them. It's about it is like you're channeling.
Yeah, I appreciate the genuineness and the openness here.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, I'm sure there are some people who think I'm talking a load of crap, but you know, I have to be honest. And thankfully, I'm a little bit older, so I can be honest. And if someone thinks it's a load of old bollocks, well, you know, that's tough. But I think a lot of people realize that. I think what's interesting for me as well, that other side of life, the spiritual path, all those things are very important, and they've been an important part of my life for a few years now. And I'm really interested, as I think a lot of people are now, about the visible world, if you like, what we see, and then there's the invisible world. And I think people have always been intrigued by that, and whether it's you're talking about God, Chi, the Force, whatever, you know, Star Wars, there's something else that goes on this planet. It's not just what we build and what we do. And
it's human nature to be curious about that.
Yeah, and so when I was asked, like, Radiohead fans were really lovely on tour, and they said, hey, Ed, what kind of record are you making? And I was like, and I would go, I'm making an existential dance record, which was slightly flippant, but it was kind of like, those are things I'm interested in. That's the stuff that I like. I was always like that as a kid. I used to love nothing more than sitting out in the garden at night, looking up at the stars with friends and like going, how can the universe, how can it never stop? How can it go on forever? I've always been curious for that stuff. And what's been so lovely is to sort of be able to just go there fully without going, oh, you know, grow up, Ed, you know, whatever. So it's been a part of, it's almost like being childlike again at the wonder and the joys of this extraordinary planet that we live on.
It's amazing the way you describe it. I hadn't heard that. I didn't know that, and that's how I would have described it. When I was listening to it, I was thinking this is sort of tapping into the metaphysical void, right? That existentialism, but there's a joyous quality at the same time that's not sugar-coated or candy-coated or fake. It's just really nice. So, Karine Polwart, is that her name? Yeah,
Karine Polwart.
I had the same feeling.
Did you?
When I heard it, the second she started singing, I had no idea what the song was about. I was just sucked in by her voice that was so timeless. I didn't know if it was old or new. I thought it was old. I think the song is a traditional folk song, but it shocked me to when I looked it up to see that you know, she's a contemporary artist and the song was like 5 years old, or whatever. There wasn't anything that gave it away as sounding new either.
Yeah, she's kind of like won, I think, BBC Folk Awards and stuff like that. But yeah, like you said, you hear it. I mean, I hope the listeners will. And this track again is one, you know, in winter I want to put this on, and I want to. It's almost like you sort of, you not wallow, but you're in that. You allow that season. You allow that melancholy. There's such a deep sadness, but it's so beautiful, right?
Yeah, it's good to feel that. Let's hear it. This is the wife of Usher's Well, Karine Polwart. You've got to tune to the afternoon show, listener-powered KEXP. Kevin Cole with you, along with Radiohead guitarist Ed O'Brien, who is sharing some of his favorite songs, like Led Zeppelin, The Battle of Evermore.
Yeah. It's classic, isn't it? But I think what the thing that reason I chose it today is because that track is very much, for me, it's very much rooted in the place of Wales, where Celtic, it feels very old, it feels very rooted to a part of Wales that I kind of call home now.
Something about that mandolin.
Yeah,
part.
it's timeless. There's something about it that's really timeless, and they're definitely tapping into a spirit there, something there that's very powerful. That I feel it's in this land. It's actually in the earth there.
Yeah,
You know?
and you wrote some of the material. You were living there, and then
Yeah.
you ended up recording the record just like a mountain hill over, right?
Well, yeah, so when I got the band together to do the initial recordings with the band, so there was Omar Hakim on drums, Nathan East on bass, and David Akumu and Flood and Catherine Marks, the producers. I was just like, I feel like it's really important to start this record in a place where you're going to feel inspired, and there's a spirit in the place. And we found this beautiful house, and we brought in a mobile recording studio setup. We recorded to 16-track tape, and then went into Pro Tools. But we started, it was as much as anything, and it goes back to the radio thing. My favorite records we've made, there's been a really great experience. And OK Computer was recorded out, a lot of it was recorded in this house outside of Bath in this valley, and it kind of, that house and the feeling that you get in there, the spirit of the place is imbued in the recordings. And I wanted that. I felt that was really important to be in this place, and then we could go back to London and finish it off and edit and tinker and blah. But we actually did 2 visits. We did one with the band, and then we went back to London. We were there for about 4 or 5 months, and then I felt like we needed to reconnect with that feeling. So we went out, just me, Flood, and Richie and Cecil, the 2 engineers, just the 4 of us. At the time, went back out to the house, to this part of Wales, for 10 days, and we were cut off from, it snowed heavily. We cut off for about 4 or 5 days, and had snowball fights with the local kids. But it was really important to get, this place is a place that I feel inspired and reconnected with, the source of this stuff.
Yeah, it's amazing how a place can do that, right?
Yeah, totally.
Like I think music at times is a reflection of the environment that it comes from and the landscape that inspired it.
For sure. And you hear it in, a lot of my favorite, like obviously Led Zeppelin did that, but I even go, things like U2, The Unforgettable Fire. You hear, I know that was started off on a mobile, but you hear that kind of, the Celtic, again, the kind of a Celtic thing in there. There's a mysticism in there, and I really believe that, and I'll continue doing that. I'll continue recording, going to places where you feel the spirit of that place. Speaking
of spirit, you were talking about Brazil earlier and going to Carnival, and that being a kind of a eye-opening or an epiphany. And you have also, kind of in similar terms, talked about Glastonbury.
Yeah, Glastonbury is a really important part of
why is that?
My life. It's our carnival. It's the time we go every year, and it's the most extraordinary music festival. The listeners who it's there are so many great music festivals, but Glastonbury's feels like the mother. It's the mother of all of them, and you go there and people are creative. They're doing their thing. It's 5-6 days of people coming together in nature, come rain or shine, and you come away from that uplifted. You come away, even if it's rained, it can be pretty hard and gets muddy. Come away with a sense of, you feel your faith is reconfirmed in humanity in a way, in the way that people are with one another, and it's such an extraordinary place, an extraordinary moment. And then the fact that the Eavis family, it's their farm, it's you're coming to their home. It's not like a corporate thing, it's their home, and they're serving you. They're putting this show on for you there. And it's the moment you turn up, the people at the gates, the security, everybody is warm, everybody's well, everybody's engaged, everybody's excited. And I was talking to a friend's dad about 5 years ago, and he's in his 80s, and he helped set up the first one. And it's 4 o'clock in the morning, and it's in the middle of some drum and bass. And I said, David, what is it about this? It feels like, because it happens the weekend after the summer solstice. I said, what is it? It feels like we're tapping into something here. People have been doing this for thousands of years. And he said, this is the meeting of the tribes of the north, the tribes of the south, of the east and the west. And it was just like, that really resonated. And it feels again like there's a timeless thing. People have been doing this at this time of the year, midsummer, celebrating being alive, getting through the winter, an explosion of light and love and celebration.
And also a release, a cathartic moment.
Totally. It's like Carnival. It's like the safety valve. Bang! All the stresses. You arrive and it takes about 24 hours for the city to kind of be thrown off you. And once the armor, the armor of the city, once that's gone, you're in there and you're in there deep.
So the lead song on the album, Shangri-La, is about that experience?
Well, Shangri-La's, it's sort of become the beating heart of Glastonbury, if you like. It's this area of Glastonbury that goes on all night, that sort of wakes up at night, and it's where all the clubs are. And it's also the place where people have put on these built these extraordinary structures in which to dance. And it's just an extraordinary, when I first went, it felt like a naughty version of Blade Runner in the middle of a field, and you don't feel like you're in this kind of bizarre city. And I guess probably not too dissimilar to Burning Man or something.
I was thinking that, just sort of unleashed creativity.
Unleashed, and it's so brilliant, and there's so much humor, and there's so much, it's just
is so inspiring when you're in that moment.
And Shangri-La. So I came away from Glastonbury. And I'm never happier than 4 o'clock in the morning with what feels like my tribe in Shangri-La celebrating, And I came away, and 4 days later, I was demoing, and this song Shangri-La was the one that was sort of my paying homage to Glastonbury and that thing of being a part of a tribe. People, you come from your different walks of life, and you gather, and you're with your people.
Speaking of festivals, what did you think of Prince's version of Creep?
Oh, it was amazing, right?
Incredible.
I mean, you can't believe it when somebody there was this, Prince, there was a sort of wasn't there a sort of an unreal quality about Prince, about what he did? I mean, in terms of, he came from another place. So you don't feel like as a musician you exist in the kind of the same universe as someone like Prince.
Well, he's so incredibly talented, right? On every instrument. And just has such a strong vision, and can just pick up anything and play. So that's just got to be, it's stunning.
It is stunning. And it was just, it's obviously amazing when somebody, you don't even think that Prince has even heard of you in a way. You kind of think you don't exist in Prince's world at all.
That was amazing. With Prince, he just loved music so much that he was constantly absorbing it and did know what was going on. Right?
Yeah, I guess he did. I mean, one time we played at the Hollywood Bowl, word got out that he was in the audience, and that was, you just wondering like, is he thinking like we're 5 white guys from Oxford who can't groove?
Music from Primal Scream. The song is Don't Fight It, Feel It from Screamadelica. And joining me this afternoon, Radiohead guitarist Ed O'Brien, who picked that record out and said that you reconnected with that album recently in the build-up to the solo record. Yeah,
it was in the formative stages, kind of the inspiration phase. And hearing that record in Brazil, it was just like, seeing the light. I felt really connected to it. I mean, and you need reference points along the way, or you need inspiration, and that played a huge part. The breadth of the record, but also, as I was saying, the dance aspect. There's the ambient aspect. There's the gospel. It's a really broad album.
And even the title of that song, "Don't Fight It, Feel It," kind of works with your mantra right now.
Totally, yeah, feel it. I mean, it's all about feeling it and intuition.
In terms of feeling it, in working on the record, did you butt up against any moments where you felt stuck at all?
Sure. I mean, I think there's a universal journey that you go through, and it's certainly anything that I've been involved with that's had any creative merit, there's been a part of it which is, it gets really tough, and that's part of the journey. That gives it its depth. And this friend of mine, when I was in the sonic trenches, as I like to say that period was, she sent me an email and she said, being a writer, she understands writing books is exactly the same. That there's this thing that she calls the 6 stages of creativity. Stage 1 is, this is great. That's what you start with. You're excited. Stage 2 is, you're into it a bit more. This is okay. Stage 3, you're really in it now. It's like, this is
See where this is going.
Yeah, exactly. And then stage 4, which is the worst, is I am. And that's a really, it's a hard place to be. And I think, yeah. And then stage 5 is this is okay, and stage 6 is hopefully this is great.
Yeah.
But it's like you have to go through that.
Yeah, that moment of self-doubt as an artist.
It's huge. It's massive, and it's the dark night of the soul. And it's like it's part of the hero's journey. It's part of that thing.
Obviously, having been through that cycle a bunch of times, do you recognize it and go, okay, I know I'm in the I'm phase?
Yeah. I mean, the last time it's different. It was been different with Radiohead, but this time I really recognized it. And but it doesn't make it easier when you're in it.
Has that, having kids changed it at all? And I don't know, in providing perspective, perhaps, or changed that process? And has having kids changed how you have reacted to music?
Oh, massively. I mean, for I always call it, having kids is like the love bomb going off in your life. Everything changes, and it gets challenging at times, and it continues to be challenging, but it's also extraordinarily beautiful. And for me, musically, it's front and center with my records. My family are a huge part of this, and purely on a inspiration level, I have been inspired or re-inspired by the pop music that I grew up with, that my kids seem to have latched onto, and to hear music through their ears has reawakened me to the beauties of a lot of music that I sort of probably wouldn't listen to again.
Yeah.
And fun, there's a lot of out of my kids' rooms, along the way in the last 10, 12 years, there's been a lot of Bowie, there's been a lot of Beatles, there's Fleetwood Mac, there's been ABBA. I mean, all these perennial greats who, I know a lot. I wouldn't necessarily go back, or I haven't in the past, because I'm searching for new things. But now it's like the great leveler, and I'm like, it's all in that. And I'm really thankful for them doing that, because they've really reconnected me with kind of like the source of something, Yeah,
and I would imagine, when they were younger, it was before there were a lot of filters too, so they might just like something because they just love it, right?
There are no filters. And there are no filters. They continue to be, and so my daughter will go off. She's into vinyl now. She's 13. She'll go off and she'll come back with a T-Rex 7-inch. And my son's interested in, the Smiths, who were obviously an extraordinarily important band for me in the 80s. So there's all this, there are no filters, and they don't discern. It's like, it's Elvis Presley next to, I don't know, Everything, or the Folds. There's no, and I love that, because I grew up with there were so many boundaries, and you were defined by what you listened to. So, like I said to you earlier, I didn't hear Led Zeppelin until I was 26. Can you imagine?
Yeah, no, that's incredible. That is one of the basic premises of KEXP. We just play good music.
Yeah.
Try and remove the the genres or what time it came out.
Yeah.
The eras. So kids reintroducing you to music. I was wondering, with Flood being a neighbor, and now you're friends, do you ever just have like sort of music listening parties where you go on late night music binges and like turn each other on to?
Yeah, we've done that. I mean, we haven't spent too much time together since we made the record. We've been kind of catching up, but we've definitely done evenings. And like he got into, we went to the pub the other night. We hadn't been out for a while, and we go to this pub in London. And I don't drink, but I haven't drunk for 17 years, but I have in this one pub, it's an Irish pub, I'll have a pint of Guinness and a load of oysters. And in the car on the way over, on my playlist, Chaka Khan, Ain't Nobody came up, and we were like, tune.
Yeah.
And what's great for me is to say to him, Flood, how do they make that? Is that sequence? Do, 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 do. And he'll go, no, I think because he worked in studios then, that was probably played. And so we talk about music a lot. You know, we're talking about the next record and how we're going to do it. And there are some sonic things up our sleeve that we want to really try out, that we kind of tapped into a bit, but we're kind of trying to do that for the next record.
That's so cool. So you felt inspired by this record enough to like, hey, I want to do another one after this.
Yeah, this is part of a trilogy. This is the start of something. I'm chasing something. I know it sounds may sound a bit weird, but there are, you know, thankfully there's a you know, for me this record Earth is it's a start, and it's a start that I'm really happy with. But I'm definitely chasing something, and I'm not sure exactly what it is. Again, it's the intuition. But I know there's something more. So things like Olympic and stuff, we're hinting at it, but there's more to do. There's more to come, for sure.
Are you going to tour on this record?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really important part. I want to get out there. I want to connect with people, and just, you know, start again, really. I've got to learn how to do this frontman singing thing. I'm excited and also slightly daunted by the whole thing as well. You know, but I'm up for the challenge. I'm up for and I don't want it to necessarily be a challenge. I want to do it in a way that feels that I want to enjoy the journey. That's what I really want to do. I don't want to get stressed. Of course there are stressful times, but I want to accept the fact that it's nice being a bit older, that I will be challenged, and there'll be bits where I feel uncomfortable and I won't know what to do, but to be honest about it, and I'm really excited about getting out there and playing this. I want to connect and meet people and do this.
Well, we're excited to have you hit the road, play these songs live. Also excited for this record, as I imagine you can't wait for people to hear it and for it to come out into creating Earth. And again, thank you so much, Ed.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me. It's been a real delight to talk to you about this today.